All right, welcome back. I'm Zach. Thank you for joining me. Tonight I have for you another awesome, exciting episode. It's going to be shorter than last week's, but it's still going to be sweet and to the point. So let's get to the point. Tonight I will expose alchemy for what it is: sun, moon, and star worship, what we call basic pagan religion. And this will help us find the ties and the connections that we need to see the larger system that is paganism, the enemy system. So this image right here represents one of the many coded images of alchemy. This is a favored image of theirs. And as you see here, like a secret society, its beliefs and systems are heavily veiled in symbolic imagery. So tonight we're going to dive into what that means. And under these veils of secrecy, many men have spent many years, their lives, and sometimes probably even their souls, searching for the answer in the lies that they thought would be found in alchemy. And these include men like Isaac Newton, and then John Dee, who was like the court wizard for the Queen in England. Crazy character right there. And as you see to my side is an AI video that I've created from that image to kind of show what it is they're actually pointed out, and I'm going to prove that tonight, that alchemy is paganism with its own separate religious and symbolical veneer, as you see. Please like, share, and subscribe with notifications on to continue getting my studies. Thank you. So you might be asking, what does alchemy have to do with the Bible? And that's a great question. Well, alchemy is biblical. That's right, I did say biblical. Kind of in a veneer because it is a subset of paganism. As we get deeper into it, but it is punishment. The turning of your mind to alchemy comes as a punishment for turning from God and making idols of yourself or idols of other pagan gods. So you might ask, well, which came first, the chicken or the egg? Well, disobedience and self-worship came before bowing down to false gods. And tonight I will prove that, and then I'll also prove that alchemy, as I stated, is pagan sun, star, and moon worship, aka astrology. And then I'll give you the most ancient resources that I found on alchemy that were hidden symbolically in ancient pagan texts. But to get there, let's start off on my favorite place, the Bible, with these powerful verses in Acts 7. So as we get into Acts, my goal with this is to show you why God punishes the people, what brings his punishment, and that his punishment, as we read at the bottom here, is that he turns them away over to worship the host of heaven, as it is written in the book of the prophets, so that God turns them over. And we'll look at why he does that. And we're going to use that to connect alchemy, because alchemy literally is the worship of the stars, but it's been veiled. And I'll show you the immediate shortcut, and you can take off research from there if you like, but I will show you the shortcut to prove and start to look at what it actually is. It's just modified and somewhat advanced system, and a very ancient system at that. So that's the goal. And with that, let's start the reading of the word. Acts 7, we'll start in verse 35. Very powerful stuff. Because it's in here, I'm going to give it to you because I love the Bible. And hopefully you love the Bible. If not, I'm trying to bring that forward. All right, so this Moses, whom they rejected, saying, "Who made you a ruler and a judge?" This man God sent both as a ruler and a redeemer by the hand of the angel who appeared to him in the bush. This man led them out, performing wonders and signs in Egypt, at the Red Sea, and in the wilderness for 40 years. This is the same Moses who said to the Israelites, "God will raise up for you a prophet like me from your brothers." This is the one who was in the congregation in the wilderness with the angel who spoke to him at Mount Sinai and with our fathers. Moses received living oracles from this angel, who is Jesus Christ. We'll show you. He received those oracles to give to us. Our fathers refused to obey him, but thrust him aside, and in their hearts they turned to Egypt, saying to Aaron, "Make for us gods who will go before us. As for this Moses who led us out from the lands of Egypt, we do not know what has become of him." And so they made a calf in those days and offered sacrifice to the idol itself, and were rejoicing in the works of their hands. And they were having a big old party when you look into it. But God turned away and gave them over to worship the host of heaven, Seba, the host of heaven, as it is written in the book of the prophets. You want a good study on that? I just put one up, Seba. It's Bible word study, and the title next to that is SEBA, host of heaven. I'll give you a little more knowledge on that. Continuing, did you bring to me slain beasts and sacrifices during the 40 years in the wilderness, O house of Israel? You took up the tent of Moloch and the star of your god Remphan, the images that you made to worship, and because of this I will send you into exile beyond Babylon. Now, it's a terrible thing to be threatened by God to be thrown out beyond Babylon, because Babylon would seemingly be almost as bad as it gets, but the punishment ends up being worse. When we look at Moloch, he would be the little g god of the fire and the flame, as I'll show here, where they would cast their young ones into the fire in order to receive blessings from this god. So what this is the devil, having been in Psalms 82, right, and Deuteronomy 32:8, the devil and his angels having been in the congregation of God. Look in here, Psalms 82, that these entities were in the great assembly, the divine assembly of gods, the divine congregation, right? So these entities knew this plan, and that's why it's blasphemy, right? They're playing the part of wickedness. And it seems that humans open themselves up to the matrix of that evil by denying God. If you see truth and you turn your back on it, bit by bit, piece by piece, you're going to fall into great sin. And so these entities, the great point I'm trying to put forward is these entities were in the divine assembly. So when you see things where they're like, oh, Jesus was Osiris and there's 10,000 da 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 da, well, why does every single story point to Jesus, right? And why is Jesus the center of everything? No one mocks anybody else but Jesus. So we got to keep asking ourselves those questions. But moving on from that point, jump back in, and I want to tell you about this angel of the Lord, right, that was with Moses, the hand of the angel who appeared to him in the bush, right, when the bush was on fire, and God pronounced his name as Yahweh, or maybe some people might say Jehovah God. All right, we're not insistent. Our way into heaven isn't knowing him by his perfect name, but that's where he gave his name, saying I am that I am, which means that he is the eternity within the eternity. He is the I am. Right? And so this is the angel who appeared to Moses in the bush. This man, Moses led them out, and then going into my next blue highlight, where Moses said a prophet would be raised up like him. And so that prophet, looking at other verse contexts, would be Jesus Christ. This verse 38 right here. Also in context, this is also one of the points that Muslims will try to use to proclaim that Muhammad was this great prophet. Right, but any kind of ties to the Bible are cut short because he doesn't match up. Only Jesus matches up with all of the prophecies, hundreds of them fulfilled, right? Because Jesus is God. So there's the argument that's quashed. There's no reason to dive into that. That's an easy argument. Look at what Jesus did versus the other religion. What in some instances, like the Assyrians, they're called the broom of God, because what we're seeing here is evil's allowed to come on people because they've denied God and turned to evil. So when we look at what he's mad for, here's some of the context, is when you look at the worship of these gods, Remphan is Saturn, right? What is Saturn in Greek pictures doing? He's eating his own offspring, right? And then we have Moloch, who, as we see this video, they tossed their own children there, and he had 7 slots in him for different levels of sacrifice. It is the devil, right? What are all these celebrities? Have you watched any conspiracies? What are these celebrities supposedly been doing, right? This BLD sacrifice, right? That's what they've been doing, and it's to the same entity. And this is one of the things that woke me up, is this evil has been ongoing and unbroken for thousands of years. Offering your child up and drinking, taking back and sipping on a red fluid has been going on with all this great evil unbroken for thousands of years. Humans are too dumb and have been too many wars for that to have been even a possibility. It's beyond a possibility. It's because the conspiracy is led by these groups of spirits, right? And these groups of spirits, as we're working out in here, are only allowed to come upon you not just because you're an ignorant person that has never read anything or known anything, that when the truth comes to you, right, it says that the men were offered the light, but they chose darkness because their ways and all their thoughts were evil, and they denied the light, not because it was too difficult, not because it was too hard, but because they wanted to do evil. And we know that that's true, and evil comes in many forms and sins come in many forms, but we do know that. So what we're seeing here is this is from like a more of a divine level, the raising the consciousness a little bit, seeing what God is actually doing. All right, and so if you're having difficulty with verse 38, I want to go over some verses of John 1:1, answering who is the Word, right? In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. Verse 14, and the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we have seen his glory, glory as of the only Son from the Father, full of grace and truth. So the Word was with God, the Word was God, is God. He was in the beginning with God, right? And then this Word became flesh. So what does that mean? What's the prophecy that became true in the Old Testament into the New Testament? That was Jesus Christ, right? The divine incarnation of the Lord, right? And so what is the punishment for denying God's word, right? So what I'm pulling together here is this is God's word. He's saying, hey, if you deny it and then you go and set up idols because you followed your own truth, you get followed into making idols, and then what comes? Then comes these evil spirits, right? So it's a system. It's a you're falling down, right? It's not all at once. So God has a lot of grace and mercy. So it's saying the punishment is for denying God's word. The word of God is defined here as Jesus Christ, right? So the Bible is perfect. People will say, oh, it has 40, what does it have? 40-something authors? Someone can correct me. A large amount of authors, and they want to make it seem as that if that is something that makes the Bible look like it's not real. Well, they all tie in perfectly. It means they haven't done any study, because the possibilities of the prophecies and how they've come true and how they connect together is, about as impossible as the universe coming from a big bang, from nothing in a time that never existed, in a space that never existed, where time never started. Something came to be, but there was no God, right? Insanity. So sorry for that little rant, but I wanted you to focus on what's happening and why God's doing it, because the biblical point is the point here. But now we're going to dive into the part that ties it into alchemy. Let's go. All right, and so our question is, what is alchemy? And as we search on Google, we'll see that it says alchemy was an ancient philosophical and proto-scientific practice that involved trying to purify, mature, and perfect materials. And so a lot of what you'll see of the outside definitions of it is that it's like ancient chemistry, it's the precursor to chemistry, and in some ways it was, because men got so wrapped up in this lie and symbolism and this false system that they actually did invent some form of chemistry by being fooled into thinking that they could turn like lead into gold and things of that nature. And then on some ends it's more philosophical, so the lead is you in your base form, and that by going through these rituals or symbols or like in Freemason's next step up, that you're going to turn yourself shape by shape into gold. Okay, and then here we have that King Henry in 1404 outlawed alchemy with the Act Against Multiplication, which made it a felony to create gold and silver out of thin air. So they were literally believing that the alchemists did have this power. And so we'll see a lot of like outside definitions. They don't really get to the heart of the matter. But opening up Britannica, a very old dictionary, even though it's constantly, it's been censored. Right, let's look at what they say alchemy is. Alchemy was the name given in Latin Europe in the 12th century to an aspect of thought that corresponds to astrology, which is apparently an older tradition. So the older tradition, astrology. Both represent attempts to discover the relationship of man to the cosmos and to exploit that relationship to his benefit. The first of these objectives may be called scientific, the second technological. Astrology is concerned with man's relationship to the stars, including the members of the solar system. Alchemy with terrestrial nature. But the distinction is far from absolute, since both are interested in the influence of the stars on terrestrial events. So we're getting away from God, and so it's a system that goes away from God, where it's an imitation. So instead of the Son of God, Jesus Christ, you have the Sun God, Apollo, the destroyer. Everything's an imitation, right? And so that's what makes it difficult if you get involved in this, is it confuses your mind. Moreover, both have always been pursued in the belief that the processes human beings witness in heaven and on earth manifest the will of the Creator, and if correctly understood, will yield the key to the Creator's intentions. So the blasphemy is hidden in the ways that it directs you away from God. You're not going to get, God speaks against this. He says, talk to me in the Old Testament, and the way you get to him, first you had to have a Day of Atonement, the lamb sacrificed to take your sins away, but we had to go all through all of that. But now the only way to God is through Jesus Christ, right? There is no other way. And so what this is another system to get to God. This is basically opening it up for other entities to come in and play God in your life, which we know that they love to do. And so as we develop this, we'll see that's exactly what alchemy is. This is all just simply focused on star worship, right? It's focused on creating relationships with these spirits or angels or archons or whatever you want to call them, that as you get into the system start to be placed as powers and principalities and spirits that you're going to end up contacting, because these things become rituals and you're burning incense to these things, right? This denies you the relationship with the Creator and has its participants reading the stars and creating their own prophecies based upon the stars. It will soon, like I said, have them burning incense to different spirits to seek power, and using ritual and different timing of the sun, moons, and stars, right? And that's you've completely put God out of the situation. So you did that by choice, but God also allows you, because when you deny truth, you're going to get this outlandish nonsense. So we seek God, we seek truth. Continuing on here, we go to what's going to be the crux of the matter, and what is the Philosopher's Stone. Okay? And what is it defined as? Right off the bat, the Philosopher's Stone was the central symbol of the mystical terminology of alchemy, symbolizing perfection at its finest, divine illumination, and heavenly so-and-so. So this is the central symbol, right? So if we can basically break this symbol open, it's going to put us at the heart of what alchemy is, you would imagine, right? Well, this is true, because for many centuries it was the most sought-after goal in alchemy. The Philosopher's Stone was the central symbol of the mystical terminology of alchemy, symbolizing perfection at its finest, as we read, divine illumination, and heavenly bliss. Efforts to discover the Philosopher's Stone were known as the Magnus Opus, or the great work, right? And this great work gets men deceived their entire lives. Instead of, even just creating your own, supporting yourself, your own kingdom, you're going after other gods. You've just wasted life well wasted, right? And so when we look at this great work, this is just going to be a quick peek for something you can run off with. The great work immediately ties into something that you might know as right? Those great fraternities. And so what do they define as the great work? Because I know these two systems are connected, but maybe you don't. So here's some clues. The great work is, above all things, the creation of man by himself, right? Godlessness. That is to say, the fall and entire conquest which he effects, which he does, not God, he does, of his faculties and his future. It is above all the perfect emancipation of his will, right? And who do we know is all about saying, I will, I will? How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, which did weaken the nations? For thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will sit upon also the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High. But God says, yet thou shalt be brought down to the pit of the hell, to the sides of the pit. So there we see where that attitude takes us. All right. So for a good many years, this gentleman has written about the idea of producing to contribute to the great work. Right. So he doesn't took in the time. In basic terms, he says the great work is the idea of completing the development of your own soul. By completing it, I mean finding within ourselves that spark of the cosmic consciousness and nurturing it to a state of understanding the wide universe around us. All those are keywords for New Age and Kabbalah, getting the spark of this cosmic universe and all this nonsense, which leads into like Sabbatai Zevi, the false messiah and of the so-called clan of Judah, who proclaimed himself a messiah in 1666. He proclaimed himself as Messiah and said that we must sin to capture these crystals, these sparks of energies, right? And that half of the population of that tribe of people believed that he was the Messiah. They didn't believe Jesus, but this guy who said sin in the deepest form will bring the Messiah in. So these are the great deceptions of the world. All right, so he's saying it's a lofty goal that is seldom ever brought to completion. But in undertaking it, right, it's going to change you. And the reality is that it's an ongoing pursuit, right? But what is the great work? The easiest way to define it is to say the great work is the quest for knowledge that ends in wisdom. It seems almost too simple, right? But what happens in the pursuit of this great work, in the pursuit of this, dumb knowledge, it doesn't make any sense, is the myriad distractions and attention-stealing interruptions, right? That's really what they are. And this is where we see where they're pointing to the mysteries of the magi, right? The magicians. So magic, praying and bowing down to stars, astrology. We're starting to, as we work our way into alchemy, we're starting to see, who its friends and foes are. It's the secrets of the great work that have a threefold signification. They are religious, philosophical, and natural. And who's that? That's from our buddy Albert Pike, who talks about Lucifer blinding the hearts, being he talks about him quite a few times. I just wanted to point out how important that the Philosopher's Stone is to alchemy, because we're about to open it up and take you to a pretty crazy place. All right, so according to Plato, the four elements are derived from a common source, or prima mater, that's associated with chaos. Right, and this is the theoretical roots outlining the stone's creation, traced to Greek philosophy, where Plato says four elements are derived from a common source, are prima mater, associated with chaos. So that things that we need to make this stone, one of them would be chaos, and chaos basically is a dark power. It's a spiritual darkness. So he's saying you need to delve into that in order to be effective, or to start to make this Philosopher's Stone, which might take someone in a bunch of crazy directions, but God, like I said, gave us a shortcut. So when you look at the Philosopher's Stone, this is what it's defined as. And the reason I have this in here is because we'll get to the text I pulled it out of, the fact that it's a circle, square, triangle. Okay, so as we look, the Philosopher's Stone is a symbolic representation of a circle, a square, and a triangle. Hold that in thought. It's going to be very important. That has spiritual meaning. Yes, it does. The symbol represents the stone's association with immortality, as well as the divine potential and totality of human consciousness. So they put all these big words attached to it. What I'm going to show you is it's astrology given to us by the gods. And so the Philosopher's Stone is the most important thing in alchemy, right? Gives us the center point. If we can break into that, if we can figure out what this means, why is it so important to them, what are these guys chasing, we'll figure something out. So remember that circle, square, triangle, right? And where's alchemy came from? Remember that Greek thing we just said? It had its originations possibly in Greece. Well, that's where I found it. And it wasn't exactly easy to find. Let's start in the book of Dionysus. Remember the Olympics? Remember that goat? Remember what he did? So let's tear apart his religious system, because he wanted to sit and put his little grapes on a platter that was supposed to be fed in front of Jesus, right? So that's his religion. And we're talking about the Philosopher's Stone getting to who pointed out to us. Here we are. Not the Father alone felt desire. That's Zeus, the father. Zeus is the father. But all Olympus had desire for Deo, who is Demeter's divine daughter. So Zeus had attractions to his own daughter, right? So he's a terrible serpent. He is one of the devil, if not the devil. Whoever made these myths up out of like Samaria and Ugarit was certainly an intelligent devil, right? So this is her, Demeter, going to get a prophecy from this gentleman Astraeus, because she's worried about who Demeter is going to get married to. And this is where we're going to find where the Philosopher's Stone actually lies, because Mrs. Demeter goes to Astraeus, right, who's like a son of Kronos. He's basically a nephew to Kronos. His dad is Krios, right? Krios is brother to Kronos. Okay. And so she's going to get a prophecy from him, but the way that he gives the prophecy is astrology, as we'll see. And how does it get to there? Well, first, let's point out that his son is Eosophoros. Eos is dawn, the light of the dawn. Oops, sorry. That literally means Lucifer. So that just pops us back to the Isaiah 14 verse we were just on, right? And when you look up the Hebrew, it says Helel ben Shahar, means shining one, son of the dawn. And here we go, the light of the dawn. Eosophoros, this is Lucifer, who is the son of this guy who's going to give Demeter a prophecy. Are you interested yet? All right, so as we scroll down, and it's right here in front of us, old Astraeus heard it and arose. He had covered the surface of a table with a dark dust, where he was describing in traced lines a circle using a tooth of his rounding tool. So probably like just like the Freemason tool, what's that called? The compass that you can use to make the perfect circle, right? So he draws a circle, and then what does he do? And then makes another figure with 3 equal sides and angles. That is an equilateral triangle, right? And within the circle, he transcribed a square. And in that square, he transcribed the triangle. So we have the circle, the square, and the triangle, which we've already looked at is the main heart, the main point of alchemy, right? And as we struggle, as we struggle. It is a struggle getting all this information now. But as we scroll down, you know, we get to what exactly they're doing in this, with this information, with this astrology setup, right? So let's get into it. Verse 50. This is in chapter 6 of Dionysiaca. You can find it on Theoi right here. You see the website up there? Okay. After the banquet, and as soon as the goddess had enough of the dance, she threw off the heavy goad of mind-maddening care and inquired of the seer's art. Right? So here he's called a seer. She laid her left hand on the knees of the kindly ancient, and with her right hand touched his deep flowing beard in supplication. She recounted all her daughter's wooers and craved a comfortable oracle, for divinations can steal away anxieties by means of hopes to come. We know the Bible says that divination is witchcraft, right? It's going on. Nor did Astraeus, the father of Lucifer, refuse. So what he did with this circle, square, and triangle is he learned the details of the day when her only child was newborn. So the very moment she was born, and the exact time and veritable course of the season which gave her birth. So which zodiac sign was it? Right? So that's going to give us the sun, the moon, and the constellation, which is the triangle. Then he bent the turning fingers of his hands and measured the moving circle of the ever-recurring number, counting from hand to hand in double exchange. He called the servant, and Asterion lifted a round revolving sphere, the shape of the sky, the image of the universe, and laid it upon the lid of a chest. Here the ancient got to work. He turned it upon its pivot and directed his gaze around the circle of the zodiac. So what's that circle representing? The circle is representing it's what we call the firmament. It's the perfect revolving circle of all the stars. And they'd love to tell you those stars are billions and billions of miles away. But what they can't tell you is go ahead and research Sirius rainbow star show, pull up a video with an actual person looking at it with a telescope, and you'll see it flashes in actually neon rainbow colors, because Sirius is not billions of light years away. That would be insanity. It's actually extremely close to us. And another clue is none of those stars, right, have ever moved. The same way they were described in ancient Egypt is the same way they look today. Not a single star has moved. If we're blowing up, right, we're just in this massive explosion of the Big Bang. there would be no such thing. But humans weren't so silly as to think the Earth was flying through space. But we'll go to the point that it is the circle of the zodiac wheel, right? So the circle is the zodiac wheel. The triangle is those 3 points, sun, moon, and star at the time of birth. And we're going to get into the square. Okay. The square is going to be like, in my other understanding, the square represents the elements, right? So all of these zodiac signs fall under, 3 or 4 different water, fire. Well, in the Bible, in the Greek, that's called stoichion. Like in Galatians, when you talk about why are you going back to those, what do they call them? Goes back to those different ways. Well, the word that's hidden in Greek is stoichion. If you search that up, stoichion, elementals. In the Greek, in the Bible, those are actually elemental spirits. And so that square represents those elements, and it also represents these other measurements that he's taking. Not that any of it really matters, because it's all fake. God's the one who decides our future and our fate, along with our will and our walk with him. But here they've completely, turned around the way and the will of God in this crazy context. And what's pretty cool is the invention of his, it seems pretty crazy. I can't imagine what this entity, because these are probably Nephilim creatures given intelligence from the angels. He turned this mechanism upon its pivot with all this information he's taken, and directed his gaze around the circle of the zodiac, scanning in this place and that planets and fixed stars. He rolled the pole about with push, and the counterfeit sky went rapidly round and round in mobile course with a perpetual movement, carrying the artificial stars about the axle set through the middle. Observing the sphere with a glance all around, the deity found that the moon at the full was crossing the curved line of her conjunction. The sun was halfway. So he's using this to set up, right? So it's helping him with the mental picture to set up the sun, the moon, the stars, and all these things at the moment of Persephone's birth, and what he's going to come to. So when he had noticed everything and reckoned the circuit of the stars, he put away the ever-revolving sphere in its roomy box, which is going to remind you of that piece of ancient machinery. I forget how you say it. That was found off the coast of Greece with a bunch of ancient gears and wheels. That reminds me of that because they had a higher level of knowledge, right? And here's where he turns this information into a prophecy. Fond Mother Demeter, when the rays of the moon are stolen, let me just remind you, Demeter rides around in a chariot that's driven by dragons, right? They're dracons. And so she's literally has pet dragons, and she's sleeping with the serpent goat Zeus. All right. So when the rays of the moon are stolen under a shady cone and her light is gone, guard against a robber bridegroom for Persephone, a secret ravisher of your unsmirched girl. If the threads of the fate can be persuaded, you will see before marriage a false and secret bedfellow come unforeseen, a half-monster cunning-minded. Since I perceive by the western point Aries, the wife-stealer walking, so this is where they're putting in the point, putting the story in based upon where the stars are. So that's where he saw Aries walking with Paphian. And I noticed the dragon rising besides them both, that dragon being Zeus, the devil, one of the devils. But I proclaim you most happy, for you will be known for glorious fruits in the 4 quarters of the universe, because you shall bestow fruit in the barren soil, since the Virgin Estrella holds out her handful of corn. Right? And so she's saying she's going to be blessed because, she's going to have a baby with Zeus. Well, Zeus is her father, and he comes to her in the form of a serpent. Her mother has hidden her in a cave and has put a nurse over her. So it makes you wonder what the age of Persephone was when Zeus came and did this vile act, right? And so to figure out this vile act, and it's almost like if you agree to this astrology garbage BS, it leads to things like this. One of the chicks that I got to know back in Florida, I was telling her, hey, you shouldn't be. She was doing like tarot cards, tarot readings, and psychics and stuff like that. And so what happened with her, I told her not to do it. She started getting dreams and sleep paralysis, and there was entities that would come to her in her sleep, and she was having the best, intimate moments of her life with things that were supposedly only in her dreams. So when you get involved with this, it opens you up to these spirits. And so they want you, what it's helping to do is, because you've turned from God, because you've shown this religion of the serpent, they'll brainwash you into thinking and opening and accepting. Your mind and words and thoughts are powerful, accepting that something like this might be the consequence of you playing around with astrology and tarot cards and any other thing that goes around God to predict and tell your future. God doesn't tell me my future all the time. I just know He's good to me. And, we build off of that. We build off of faith. We don't build off of all this nonsense. And it just proves how deep and nonsensical it is by how evil the outcome is. Zeus in the form of a dragon come and taking his daughter inside a cave where her mother hid her away. And then what does she birth? She birthed Dionysus, Zagreus, they called him the first. But it was born by this union, And it says a lot. If you think about it, it says a lot. So as we come to our close, I just want to, put those pictures in front of you again to show you that's what alchemy is, And have no faith in it. Have faith in something beautiful like this. And so I'll leave that there. So as we finish up this recording, I just want to say I hope you enjoyed it. I thank everyone who's watched my videos and helped my videos to blow up. It's been awesome, and it's been great to see, and an awesome reward for the amount of hours and time that I've put into it, and the amount of things in life that have fell through that weren't meant to be, and that led to this. So thank you, and God bless you. I appreciate your support, everyone who's left awesome comments and helped to support me. I created this channel about 4 weeks ago, and the last video I think is up to like 7,000 hours watched. I just released it like 48 hours ago. It has like 35,000 views, crazy number of 8,000 hours watched at this point. And so I'm thankful, and I hope you like and subscribe and keep watching me. Send me ideas, and I'll leave it on this John 1, and I'll let you know I have another awesome episode coming, probably by Monday or Tuesday night if all goes well, if it goes to plan. The episode, I'm going to try to expand our knowledge, and because this is I'm in the middle of studying too. I had a good knowledge on it, but I'm getting deep. I'm going to try to expand our knowledge of the Rephaim and the Nephilim by studying Og in the Bible, because there are many verses that are scattered about here and there, and it'll be helpful to grab them all and bring them together for a look at it as one, to get it all together so we can see, hey, here it is. Who is he? And with that, do a larger character analysis. And then with that character and then knowledge of the biblical Og, right, I will show you this exact same character in ancient Ugaritic texts, which I feel on top of that are going to lead to even greater, deeper insights. Because I know continuing the study will reveal what really happened after the flood and before Abraham. Because there's that time period that is so extremely dark, spiritually, and then also it's just difficult to find information on. It's been recorded as a very quick jump to Abraham in the Bible, and then so we have to use those names, and then the very few stories about the Rephaim to tie in with the mythology. But I found a connection to Og, so hopefully you're excited about that, because I was. So hopefully y'all are learning, and I'm learning, and I'm trying to get to the bottom of these topics, get some really good pay dirt out of it, some treasure, some gold, because as God said, seek ye after wisdom, seek after the knowledge of God and His ways, because this is so much more worthy, it's so much more valuable than gold, than any amount of gold, is the knowledge of God. So I pray that you join me in the search, for I have yet to see anyone give these answers publicly. And with that, I thank you for watching. I hope you have a great night, great weekend. God bless you. Peace.